Welcome everyone to PASS Virtual Summit 2020, Identifying, Understanding, and Combating Gender Bias. Take advantage of all the free resources that PASS offers with regards to training and networking and getting better at your job at pass.org. I'm Ree. I'm a senior program manager with Microsoft. I am the program lead for the Data Platform MVP program, and I manage the product group relationship with the PASS community. I am very active in PASS. I help run the Atlanta SQL Server user group, and I help run SQL Saturday Atlanta, and I volunteer for a lot of different events globally when it comes to delivering the message from the data platform. There's a couple of different virtual groups that I'd like to share some information about today. The first being the PASS Women in Technology virtual group, Encourage, Energize, and Empower. They meet at least once a month and highlight the fantastic work that the women are doing in the data platform. And a relatively new group that we have, the PASS Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Group. And their goal is to increase DEI knowledge in the SQL community. And they want to highlight, promote, and amplify the voices of community members from underrepresented and non-dominant backgrounds. Today's session, Identifying, Understanding, and Combating Gender Bias and Inequality. So what is gender bias? Gender bias is something that we're all guilty of, right? It's typically unconscious, often stems from long-held misperceptions about women and job responsibilities. Today, we're going to learn about the origins of some of these biases, how to interpret and identify gender bias when we see it, and some steps that we can take to help things not affect how we interact in the world when we have these biases. So this session is going to be about developing positive solutions to a problem that often goes undiscussed. And I mean that. We're going to discuss some strategies for both men and women on how to combat this at work. And let me stress that. Men are always welcome at Women in Tech sessions. Men are and should be allies. And if we could fix the women in tech issue alone, we would have a long time ago. There just aren't enough of us in tech to do this on our own. So we need your help. And if you're attending today, I'm glad you're here. So I will say there might be a little bit of complaining in the session, but I'm not sorry about that. It is tough to get up every day and throw yourself into the brick wall that is gender bias in IT. And yet here we are, and we get up and we do it every day. So, but we're allowed to be a little disgruntled about that. So what is gender bias? Bias is defined as any tendency which prevents unprejudiced consideration of a question or behavior. Gender bias occurs because individual stereotypes and prejudices about gender become implicitly, unknowingly, but systematically implemented into everyday life. But simply put, it's an unfair difference in the way men and women are perceived. So why do we have bias? Well, we go out into the world and make decisions every day in split seconds. We possess an instinct that tells us if a person, place, or an object is safe or not. And this is kind of what guides our fight or flight principle. So what's important to know is how you respond or react to bias. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying you can't help it. You can. This fight or flight sense is using learned information to determine a reaction. We aren't born fearing or having preconceived notions about men or women. We learn these subconsciously. And how we react is what we're in control of. So let's talk a little bit about gender bias in hiring. So there was a study in 1999 where identical resumes were sent out. Now I say identical, but except for one change. and that was names were switched. And they used what we consider gender-specific names of Karen Miller or Brian Miller. Now, both men and women chose to hire the male candidates. 79% of the time they chose the male name, and only 49% of the time they chose the female name. When asked about this later, respondents would say, with regards to the women, we would have to see her job talk if this was for a professor or in sales or something like that. It's impossible to make a judgment without teaching evaluation. So they would want more information on the woman candidate, but they didn't ask for more information on the male candidate. They would need to see evidence that she had gotten the grants and publications on her resume on her own. Let me be clear, they did not ask for this kind of follow-up for Brian, only for Karen. In 2016, Erin McKelvey was getting 0 responses to her resume after graduating college, but Mac, on the other hand, got a 75% response rate on applications. Now, of course, Mac and Erin are the same person. Mac was just her nickname. I actually counsel a lot of women to submit a resume with their initials on it. It helps get past that initial scanning through the resume. They know it's a woman because of the name that's on it, and you're far more likely to get to the second round. I wish we didn't have to do that, and I wish life were fair, but it is not. So again, in 2012, resumes were submitted, virtually identical, but with gender-specific names. And in this particular case, it was to faculty members. And both male and female faculty members rated the female candidate worse. The female was described as less competent or less hireable, and if she was chosen to be hired, she was offered a lower salary, up to 40% lower. So gender bias in hiring matters. This gender bias in hiring makes the wage gap worse. We'll get to the wage gap later on today. Women make up actually about 30% of the hires in tech companies. So why 30%? Across the board, Amazon 37, Facebook 31, Google 30, Apple, Microsoft, and Twitter are all about 30. So why 30% across the board? That's a little odd, right? Well, the theory is that it's like water seeks its own level, right? So 30% of a company is enough to put a woman in every meeting. And it tricks your brain into thinking that you're diverse. We must be a diverse company, right? We have Karen. She was just in a meeting. Well, this isn't reality. One woman in a meeting isn't diverse. Let's talk about how that's actually broken up among tech companies. Now, overall, 29% to 30% is women in tech. That is tech companies. When we look at tech roles in companies, that number drops down to 16%. But leadership, women in leadership roles in tech companies, it's at 22%. So in 2020, in the top 1,500 of companies on the S&P, there were more CEOs named John than there are women total. Think about that. There are more men named John than there are women. So that's a little disparity that we should probably work on, right? So how many women in IT is enough? The late Ruth Bader Ginsburg, when asked how many women should be on the Supreme Court, how many she thought would be a good number, she said 9. And people's response to this was shock. When she pointed out that for the majority of our history, the number of men on the Supreme Court, so single gender, was 9, and nobody thought that was strange. When Hillary Clinton ran for president in 2016, a lot of people wanted Elizabeth Warren to run with her, but the refrain we got was you can't have two people of the same gender on the ticket. What they mean is you can't have two women on a ticket, because we've had two men on the ticket for a long, long time. So orchestras identified a problem that in the 70s and 80s, women made up only 5% of orchestra musicians. And why is it? Is that women are less talented in music? Are they auditioning less? Are they going into the field less frequently? Well, one of the things they did to work on this and to try to help identify the problem was to introduce a blind screening process. So what they did was they put a screen between the audience or the adjudicator, whoever was listening to them play, and the musician. They weren't allowed to speak to each other. They muffled the floor so you could not hear them walk, and they just played. This immediately increased women making it past that preliminary audition to 50%. They introduced a blind audition where you couldn't tell the sex or gender of the person playing for you, and it immediately increased the number of women making it to the next step. Now, women didn't immediately become 50% of orchestras, of course. There is some follow-up, but it made an immediate difference. And the fact that it made an immediate difference tells us that the problem was bias. So what can we do about it? How do we fix the bias issue in hiring? Well, first of all, ask your HR or hiring manager to present nameless resumes to that hiring manager. This will eliminate the Karen versus Brian scenario. And so this is a gender bias talk, but I will say there is racial bias as well. Studies indicate the same, about the same percentage, maybe worse, if the name on the resume is Jamal Washington versus Jamie Washington. So nameless resumes would actually help solve a few problems at the same time. So educate your hiring manager on how bias works. Sometimes just pointing out that the problem exists and here are some steps that you can take to fix that actually helps. The goal is to get more people through that first step. So there's more people at the second step and the third step that are women. When you list a job, emphasize objective, measurable, and relevant qualifications over cultural or male-associated personality traits. I had a recruiter many years ago continue to reach out to me about this job. And he kept describing how fun the atmosphere was, and there are foosball tables and a pool table, and they have a bar inside, and on Fridays after work they all have beer together. I gotta tell you, I, as a DBA, had no desire to be the mom for or the babysitter for a bunch of bro dude developers that took the job this guy was selling because that's the atmosphere they wanted. And I certainly didn't want to be deploying code that was written by developers with easy access to a keg. Call out specific skills in a job ad that women are socialized to be comfortable with associating with themselves, like a collaborative working style. Call out interpersonal skills that you're looking for, time management. Be sure to mention job flexibility. That's a big one. So those are a few things that you can do that will get more women to apply for the job. So if you're a hiring manager or you're having to write a job description and you're not getting women applying for the job, trust me when I tell you, it's not because there aren't women out there. there's something about your job ad that isn't attractive to women candidates. One thing that you can do, instead of listing that you want 5 years experience in a series of qualifications, list a range. So say 4 to 7, 3 to 6, something like that, because men will apply for a job if they meet, I think it's like 40% of the qualifications for a job. But women, it's in the 80s or the 90% that they have to hire. So unless it is a hard, fast requirement for you that they have been doing this for 5 years, try listing a range. It'll help you cast a wider net. And so while a woman may only have 3 years experience in technology A, she'll have greater experience in technology B, and that actually turns out to be a really good candidate for your job. Remember, I'm not trying to force anybody to hire women. I'm trying to help get them through the door. And once they're through the door and you see the skill set and their work experience, maybe you'll hire them because they're the person for the job. So let's skip to gender inequality and let's define that really quickly. So gender inequality refers to the unequal treatment or perceptions of individuals based on their gender. It arises from differences in socially constructed gender roles. Okay. Gender inequality is either the treatment or the belief, and bias is something that's internalized to you. So slight difference.
Can I finish my sentence?
No.
That's it then, Margaret Thatcher.
Hey, missus, shut up.
Hey,
Kelly. Hey,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
خلاص طب اسكتي حتى أستطيع أن أتكلم.
17 minutes past the hour. We shouldn't be talking about theories. That has theories about choices out there.
Pakistan.
And I can't believe I'm about to cut off.
Me off. Goodbye, and I'll see you next time round, yeah?
Putin doesn't control everything that happens
Very
in
different.
Russia.
It's
I know,
we're getting absurd now.
I'm really happy for you. I'm gonna let you finish. But Beyonce had one of the best videos of all time.
So the man-terruption, right? I actually really hate that phrase. Women get talked over at work 3 times the rate that men do. And it is a serious problem. And I realize every single time I give this presentation, I have a gentleman in the audience who tells me, this doesn't happen where I work. I've never noticed this. And every single time this happens, I challenge them that odds are pretty good that they just aren't paying attention, that this does happen where they work, but because they've never had it called to their attention, it is the norm, and you don't recognize normal things, you recognize outliers. So I challenge them to talk to the women that they work with, to pay attention in meetings, and come back to me. And almost without fail, every single time I have challenged a gentleman to do this, he has come back to me within a couple of weeks and said, wow, you're right. In some cases, they went home and spoke to their wife, who is in IT, and she said, "Oh yeah, I get talked over all the time. I get interrupted all the time." So I have an entire session that teaches women and men skill sets that they can use for how to deal with this. So let's talk about some different ways that we can combat this issue with women at work. So a seat at the table, women working for the Obama White House complained that they weren't being let into important meetings, but when they were ignored. So female staffers came up with a strategy and a solution, and they called it amplification. So that in these meetings, when a woman made a key point, other women would then repeat it. and give credit to that author. So this did two things. So Karen comes up with, hey, I have this idea. Why don't we do X? And another woman would say, oh, Karen, that's a good idea, that. And then they would say the idea over. And what that does is it gives Karen ownership, and it prevents Brian from then repeating it and sort of running with it and making it his own. And then when everybody leaves the meeting later, they think Brian's the one who had this great idea. And that's not how it works. So this process of amplification forced everybody in the room to mentally give Karen credit for the idea. So why does any of this matter? Well, I mean, there's plenty of reasons. Knowledge, equality, dignity, respect. But if you want to be less altruistic, money. So let's talk a little bit about gender and compensation. This cartoon actually just entertains me a little bit. 3/4 of a penny for your thoughts. Why? Well, women make about 75 cents on the dollar compared to men.
Is your company looking to maximize their output while cutting back on costs? Why outsource all your production to faraway countries like India, China, and Narnia when we have the cheapest and best workforce right here in the good old US of A? Women. That's right. With pink sourcing, women are a bargain at the workplace since you only have to pay them 77 cents on the dollar. Right, Kathy?
Wait, what? I make 60 cents. Who are you, Bill Gates?
Vicky, I make 55 cents. Who is she, Yeezy? No, come on. Those are men. Even more importantly, you don't have to pay women overtime. They'll never ask for a raise, and they don't complain about their working conditions. Right, Kathy? Don't forget, women are great at remembering birthdays. They're the only ones who bring baked goods into the office, and they smell nice. Also, you don't have to pay for women's birth control. And if they do get knocked up, when they leave to have the baby, you get off scot-free. But don't worry, guys. Your boner pills are still covered. And ladies, who cares if you make $30,000 less than men at your job when they have free tampons in the bathroom? Best of all, you can promote literally anyone else besides them, especially if they're less qualified.
You're late for the 3 o'clock cuddle.
Ooh, sorry, Kathy.
My name is Sharon. Bitch.
After all, women don't even really want to be working anyway. They'd rather be home, taking care of the family, while their husband gets to make life choices and follow his dreams and play fantasy football. So try pink sourcing today. Pink sourcing, pretty, cheap labor. Will also work for compliments.
Entertaining view, right? of what is a serious issue. So the wage gap is real. I'll challenge you that if you go out and Google search, is the wage gap real? A lot of the result sets that you get back are going to be a YouTube video of a white dude explaining to you how the wage gap is not real. And I don't understand this mindset. I don't understand the need to prove a negative. Equality is not pie. I'm not asking for you to get less pie. Women just want to be paid equitably, equal work for equal pay. So what is the wage gap exactly? So expressed as a percentage, it is calculated by dividing the median annual earnings for women by the median annual earnings for men. Now, the wage gap is larger for minority women at only 64 cents on the dollar, whereas in 2013, for white women, it was 78%. So the wage gap is real. It's math, y'all. Okay. It's not closing at the rate that we would like for it to. Here, representation over time. I, this is sad. That women working just as long and just as hard as men can't close that gap. So are we making progress over time? Not really, not in the last few years. So all women, it's now gotten up to 82%. For just white women, 79%. So this data was released by the US Census Bureau, shows us that between 2018 and 2019, no progress was made in closing the gap overall. The average full-time working woman still earns just 82 cents for every dollar earned by men. Now, when looking at the breakdown of pay, Black women are at risk of losing almost $1 million in their wages over a 40-year career because of that pay gap. I think for African American or Black women, it is $940,000 over 40 years. Native American women and Latinas will lose over $1 million over a 40-year career. Women overall, though, the average is that women will earn $400,000 less than men over a 40-year career. So gender disparity. So in just about every state in the country, millennial women are more likely than millennial men to have a college degree, yet millennial women are far more likely to earn a poverty wage, and they do earn less than millennial men. By the time a college-educated woman turns 59, she will have lost almost $800,000 throughout her lifetime to the wage gap. Current trends on that narrowing, so that bar graph that I showed you a few minutes ago, we are not going to achieve pay equity until 2058, but in 5 states, West Virginia, Utah, Louisiana, North Dakota, and Wyoming, women born today will not see equal pay in their lifetime. The wage gap in those states will not close until after 2100. We're better than this. We can do better than this. So the wage gap differs by profession. Okay, so nurses, the pay gap is only 91%. Attorneys and software developers, it's in the 80s. Janitors, it's at 79%. Retail sales, it's at 64%. So what is it about these jobs, at least on the top of this chart, that makes it far more likely that, or far more close to equity? And the answer is probably pay bands. So when a corporation creates pay bands where if you are doing a job that is ranked as this particular number, a 56, a 42, a grade C or G or whatever, if that pay band says that you earn this specific amount, then they are helping remove from that the decision where bias can creep in. So pay bands actually increase equity in professions. So what can we do about the pay gap, and how can we help close it? Well, women are far more likely to work in jobs where pay is based on the minimum wage. Teachers' assistants, general office staff, servers, and bartenders. When I see people arguing against raising the minimum wage or raising the minimum tipped wage, people often throw in, why is the person making my burger worthy of $10 an hour or $15 an hour? They think just teenagers earn minimum wage. Now, first of all, I don't think it matters how old you are, or what your gender is, or anything. The work you're doing is worth something. And it is worth more than a poverty rate. But women are far more likely to work in jobs that are based on it. So teachers' assistants are not the people flipping a burger at a local joint, the receptionist at your office, the office manager, even EMTs are pretty important to culture, right? Essential frontline workers are often paid a salary that is based on the minimum wage. So not salaried, but hourly rates. So think about all the people in your life who work an hourly job as opposed to just earning a salary regardless of how many hours they work a week. Those are the people who are directly affected by raising the minimum wage. Another thing that would help would be supporting pay transparency. In some states, in some businesses, it is completely acceptable for that business to have in its handbook that you are not allowed to discuss your salary with the person who sits next to you who is doing the exact same job. But pay transparency makes it easy for women to know if they're being underpaid. Companies that make it a violation of the rules to discuss their salary aren't protecting you. They are protecting themselves. Now, some states like Massachusetts have actually passed laws that your company can't do that. They can't limit what you can discuss about your salary. But there are other states that are typically tend to be right to work states, which if you don't know what that means, it actually means right to fire. It means that they don't have to have a reason for firing you and you have no recourse. But it's labeled as right to work because lobbyists. So, but companies very often will put something in their handbook that limits your ability to discuss salary. They should pass sick pay legislation. 40% of people in America have no sick pay at all. So what does this mean? It means that they're either going to work sick, which I think we've all learned is a bad idea, or they're having to take time off when they are sick. And if you are one of these people who doesn't have pay legislation, you're far more likely to be a woman, you're far more likely to be working in an hourly minimum wage based job. So not having sick pay actually widens the pay gap. Paid family and medical leave here in the United States, there are no laws, federally at least, that require you to get family or medical leave. Women are far more likely to be the one who takes off work when a child or other family member needs care. So again, with no medical leave, and if they have no sick pay that they can use for this, it widens the pay gap even larger. One of the things that could be done would be to help women become better negotiators. I would love to see some people teach more sessions in the SQL community on how to be a better negotiator on salary. Know your worth. Know what others in this job slot are getting paid. There are a lot of resources that you can start with. Salary.com is one of them. I forget who bought them. So somebody else owns salary.com right now. But you can put in what it is that you do and where you work and how many years you've been doing it, and it'll spit out a range of what you should get paid. Finally, support equal pay legislation. Make it against the law in your state to pay two people who are doing the same job and have the same experience. Make it against the law for them to pay one more than the other. This disproportionately affects women. And remember, equality is not pie. I totally forgot what this slide is supposed to be. Oh, here we go. Equal pay. If we could enforce equal pay, it would cut poverty in half for families that have a working woman. So if you're a single mother, what you're earning right now as comparable to men more greatly affects your family than anybody else. So let's touch a little bit on sexism. Let's define it first. Sexism is the belief that one sex, typically male, is naturally superior to the other and should dominate most important areas of political, economic, and social life. Sexism is both discrimination based on gender and the attitudes, stereotypes, and the cultural elements that promote this discrimination.
So, I heard you're about to have your first kid. Congratulations.
Yeah. It's a girl. We're thrilled. I'm a little nervous.
Don't be. You'll do great. Although the timing is a little unfortunate.
How so?
Well, we have a new job opening coming up, and I was thinking about recommending you, but I assume you'll want to switch to part-time as a new father. Okay, let's get started.
Bill, would you mind taking notes on the whiteboard? You have the loveliest handwriting.
Okay.
Good morning. I have a meeting with Erica Martinez. Oh, hey. Oh, it's great to see you again. I've been meaning to ask you to get in touch with my assistant to reschedule that meeting from last week. Oh, by the way, I'm so sorry. Are you Nadia or Danielle's assistant?
I'm your finance manager.
Okay, folks. Big meeting is coming up tomorrow. How do you want to handle it?
I definitely think Isabel should be a part of it since she did all the analysis.
I think Maria should be there as well. It'll be a great chance for her to see what these kinds of meetings are like.
Makes sense to me. But this is beginning to feel like a big group. Bill, why don't you sit this one out? And that way we'll feel like less of a crowd.
This seems really important. I'd hate to miss out on something that can have a big impact on what we're doing.
Listen, Bill, we're going to need you to be more of a team player if you're going to be successful here.
He did a surprisingly good job on the numbers for the board. It was pretty complicated and math heavy, but he seemed to get it right away.
Well, great. Sounds like some real potential there.
Yeah, but he needs to be more assertive, more forceful. Sometimes he can come off as too soft and nice.
You know, a few others have mentioned something along those lines. I think I'm going to bring it up with him.
I wouldn't do that. He can be a little emotional, and sometimes his feelings get the best of him.
I'll find a way to work it in.
Okay.
Wow, 3 men on one team. This is pretty rare.
Oh, we're all just really passionate and excited about the topic.
Really? I just wouldn't have guessed you guys would be interested in working on our new perfume launch.
I thought this would be a great way to get more experience in product marketing.
Yeah, and a huge opportunity to do some really creative work.
Of course, you know, that's great. I'm glad you guys are here. Looking forward to the chit-chat about the football and the sports cars in the planning meetings. Yeah, keep up the good work.
Are you okay? You seem a little stressed lately. Everything okay at home?
Actually, everything's fine. Why do you ask?
Well, it's just you seem a little disheveled lately. Normally you're so well put together and stylish. The stress of the job starting to get to you?
Nope, just trying to stay on top of these presentation deadlines we got coming up.
Oh gosh, I'm so sorry. That's a lot for you to handle on your own. If you want someone to take some of that workload off of you, Alicia works great under pressure.
Thanks for the offer. I got an email.
Hey, how you doing?
Excited about the party. Just feel bad about being so late, but I got stuck in traffic.
Oh, no worries. These office things, they never really start on time. So who are you here with?
Oh, my wife couldn't make it.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just assumed that you were one of the spouses, you know.
No, I work here. My wife doesn't.
Oh, that's nice.
So yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. When I first saw this video, um, I, I I was struck by how many of those different scenarios that I had run into in my career. And sexism doesn't have to be overt. It doesn't have to be, um, sexism doesn't always rise to the level of sexual harassment. It doesn't have to be ugly or cruel or obvious, but um, little things matter. And sometimes it feels like we are bleeding to death from 1,000 tiny cuts for all of the little things that we experience in our careers. So, some subtle sexism in the workplace. Never ask a woman when she's getting married or when she's having kids. I can assure you that this is a question that is asked of women far more frequently than it is asked of men. Do not describe behavior as unladylike. If it does not matter whether or not a lady is doing the job, then any of my behavior would not matter if it was ladylike or unladylike. Um, Another subtle form of sexism is an unequal balance of labor during your marriage. Now, what I mean by this is if you and your spouse have agreed that the man is going to work and the woman is going to stay at home and keep the house and raise children, and you equitably divide that labor, that's not sexist. I will support a woman's right to be a stay-at-home mom all day, every day. What I'm talking about here is when a husband and a wife both work 40 hours or more a week, yet the woman is expected to shoulder more of the load at home. She is the one doing all of the laundry. She is cooking dinner. I mean, maybe you do the dishes if you're a dude, right? And expect a parade. But is she also the one that's getting all the kids to bed and still doing the 40 hours of work? That is an unequal division of labor that makes it harder for a woman to do all of the things that she needs to do to get ahead at work. Being uncomfortable with switched gender roles, the video that we just showed, where you know, people are talking to men in a way that they normally talk to women. That is an exaggerated way of calling out sexism in the workplace. Being expected to do work that isn't related to your actual job. If you have meetings at work through lunch and somehow the woman on your team is the one who's always ordering the food, or if she is always the one that takes notes during meetings, but that's not her actual job, as in she's not the office manager, the receptionist, whomever's job it should be in your company to handle that. If she is a developer or a DBA and she's the one who's always doing that, pay attention next time. And it shouldn't be her job because she's a she. I mentioned earlier that women are interrupted at 3 times the rate that men are. And I will say, women interrupt women as well. Not as frequently as men interrupt women, but women are being interrupted by both genders. So it's important to notice it and call it out and to adjust your own behavior when you notice it. Calling women emotional or bitches for doing the same thing that men do is unacceptable and is sexism. Women are far more likely to be called various names where a man is assertive, a woman is being aggressive. There's a lot of research around words that are used in reviews where For example, a woman is told that she talks too much and it's a bad thing, but a man who talks too much is being a leader. So this kind of gendered talk isn't designed to be gendered talk. It just ends up being gendered talk because of how it's used as a weapon against women where it isn't. And finally, I will wrap this up with, is it really the greatest insult to a boy being called part of a female anatomy? I won't say it actually here. But how about saying you do something like a girl? That's somehow an insult is a subtle form of sexism. This is a screenshot that I took years ago on what women should or shouldn't do. I have done this recently, and luckily it has adjusted a little bit. It isn't anywhere as bad as it used to be. These kinds of drop downs are populated based on what people are actually searching and what they're clicking on. So I would suggest that you give a few phrases like this a try yourself, just to, if for no other reason than to entertain yourself, right? So sexism starts young. So this particular exercise happened in an elementary classroom. They asked boys and girls to come up with a list of words that they associated with girls and that they associated with boys. And so you see for girls, they came up with pretty, Barbies, peaceful games, sassy, different hairstyles, feelings, ponies. Finally, at the very bottom of the list, somebody said strong. But what did they think of for boys? So soccer, active games, strong, video games, jeans, trains, sneakers, hard challenges, karate, sneaky. That could go either way, I suppose. Fast, funny, serious. So these all are, because they asked for gendered words, gendered, right? So then they asked the kids to disregard the list. But they said, we're gonna call out some of these words, and we want to know if this applies to you. And so they read off words from both lists, and girls could comfortably raise their hands when they said things like soccer, or powerful, or hard challenges, and even karate. And boys felt comfortable raising their hands when they said things like feelings, or ponies, or peaceful. So left to their own devices, kids figure this out in the right way. But we are pushing gendered terms and gendered roles onto them. There is a study that shows girls believe brilliance is a male trait. So according to research into gender stereotypes, they would give words and ask you to associate if it's a male or a female trait. And when they got to the word brilliant, even young girls said that was a male word. The US-based study also found that unlike boys, girls do not believe that achieving good grades in school is related to innate abilities. Why do you make good grades? Because you're smart. Children were asked which person in a picture were smarter, which would excel academically, and were read a story about a really smart person. And guess what happened? So they're read a story about a really smart person, and then they're shown a picture. Who in this picture was this story about? They would pick the boy. Asked which person in this picture is smarter, they would pick the boy. And they started this study young, but then somewhere at around age 6 is where gendered traits came about. So we can do better. We can do better. So it starts really young. This is a doctor kit. And while, yes, you could buy this for a girl, it is blue versus the nurse outfit that is pink. And the picture on the package is a little boy versus a little girl. This is gendered marketing. It is teaching girls very young, and this is for ages 3 and up, that doctors are boys and nurses are girls. It's subtle, but trust me when I tell you they get the message loud and clear. Clothing in an infant department. This one here on the left, I hate my thighs, it was in the girls department. But I'm super, and that's a cape, by the way, was in the boys department. These two identical-ish books, right? The big book of girl stuff versus the big book of boy stuff. Mean Girls, babysitting, how to tell a boy that you like him, versus the boys, how to make a rocket, how to make lightning, and practical jokes. We are teaching our children young that gender matters to what you do and what you feel, what you produce, and who you are. Go out and do your own search, an image search of toys for boys. Toys for Boys promote physical activities. They focus on skills like competition, racing, invention, exploration, and problem solving. They teach boys how to be warriors. They teach boys how to be leaders. Go do an image search for toys for girls. They are generally designed to teach and encourage nurturing behaviors. They focus on beauty and appearance, and they provide examples for girls on what is a more appropriate life or career choice for them. It starts young. So how can you tell if a toy is for a boy or a girl? Ask yourself this question: do you operate it with your genitalia? If yes, this is not a toy for children. If no, then it's a toy for either a boy or a girl. Toys do not have genders. Oh, there we go, Riley.
Would it be fair for all the girls to buy princesses and all the boys to buy superheroes?
Well, why?
Because girls want superheroes and the boys want superheroes, and the girls want pink stuff, and the boys don't want pink stuff. Yeah.
Boys want both, but why did you think they do that?
Because the companies who make these try to trick the girls into buying the pink stuff instead of stuff that boys want to buy, right?
Right, but you can buy either, right? And boys can buy either. If boys want to buy pink, they can buy pink, right?
Yeah, so then why do all the girls have to buy princesses? Some girls like superheroes, some girls like princesses. Some boy likes superheroes, some boy likes princesses.
Absolutely,
So
absolutely right.
why do all the girls have to buy pink stuff and all the boys have to buy different color stuff?
So Riley is my spirit animal. I love watching this video. She's that young and she gets it. And I love that she is completely flailing around a Fred doll from Scooby-Doo when you would think that somebody would have handed her a Daphne doll. But Riley gets it. She's young and she gets it. And I think in this video, she's about 4. Maybe she's close to 5. So society has not sucked the life out of her yet, right? So let's talk really quickly for just a minute about the pink tax. And what is the pink tax? The pink tax refers to the extra amount women are charged for certain products or services, things like dry cleaning, personal care products, and vehicle maintenance. If you were to drop 2 identical shirts off at the dry cleaner, so 2 white button-up dress shirts, women's shirts frequently cost twice as much to dry clean. Are you telling me that a 100% cotton button-up shirt is somehow more complicated because it's cut for a woman? No. Vehicle maintenance, women are charged on average 10% more for the same repair on a car. Health and beauty items cost around 25% more. than than the ones that are designed for men. But each year, this cost women about $1,300 more out of our pocket. Now, we're already making 20-ish% less than men, and now you want to take another $1,300 for the same items. So, for example, triple blade razors for men and for women. And I get it's 40 cents, right? But it's 40 cents every few weeks. And this is just on this one item. They market things to us, and we should want to buy it because it's pink. It has nothing to do with its function, but yay, it costs more. Bic made a huge mistake. Bic asked Ellen DeGeneres if she would speak for their Lady Bic pens. And I don't know if any of you ever saw it. You could probably find it on YouTube, but Ellen went off about her little tiny woman hands being able to write with a tiny little Bic pen. But this tagline, look like a girl, act like a lady, think like a man, and work like a boss, is so incredibly insulting. And I do not use Bic pens. So here's the Bic for her, by the way. It's literally it writes blue, but it's pink or it's purple, and it costs more than a similar pack of just blue or black on the outside pens. I have no idea what Gucci is selling in that ad on the top, but I know that I don't like it. When you get a chance, go to Amazon, and you can Google almost any of those books. JavaScript for ladies, they may have finally taken them down. There's a whole series of scripting books for women. I will tell you that it is literally the same book. They just changed the title. But I would suggest that what you do for those books is read the reviews. If you have a few minutes and need to be cheered up, go find those books and read just the reviews. They're awesome. They give me hope in humanity. I'm not sure why you need a pink gun. These are shirts that are sold. He's training to be Batman. She's training to be Batman's wife. Needing a hero versus being a hero, you know. So I have lots of resources here for you. If you want to check out anything that we talked about today, it is available in the slide deck for you to download and check all of those resources. You can fill out a session evaluation. This helps us improve the work product that we deliver to you each and every time we give these sessions. Finally, I want to encourage you to join a Microsoft focus group. Normally, we would run these during Past Summit because it's virtual this year. We decided to not add a layer of complexity, so we will be hosting focus groups all next week. So the week following Summit, and you can learn more about those at past.org/summit/220/learn/Microsoft@Summit. And I want to thank you so much for attending today. And if you have any further questions, hit me up on Twitter. Feel free to send me an email. And I would love to hear from you.